Yes, it's still morning, and I'm here with Ian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Let me put this up here for him a little bit. He's a tall man, and so he probably needs the microphone up a little bit closer to his mouth. So you're good.
I am good, thank you, and I love this weather.
I know, right?
It's crazy.
February 1st, and he's outside in a t-shirt.
Yeah, and years ago I lived in San Diego.
Okay.
And I would call people during the holidays and say, oh, I'm outside in shorts and a shirt.
Yeah.
And apparently I can do that here now, too. So.
Well, don't get crazy, because it's supposed to go back down to freezing on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm not going to walk around with a Speedo or anything if that's what you mean.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, that's a good thing to know, Ian. Ian is here with us, and Melissa Krull from one of our radio programs introduced us by way of telling me that she had done an interview with you, back in December?
Yeah, December 4th at Utica Bouras.
Very good. And now, how did Melissa find you?
And this is the power of social media. I was doing something at Utica Bouras, and I played there a couple times. And she is friends on Facebook with manager Sue Geller.
Okay.
And she saw the story and
picked up on it.
Came down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And Ian is a very talented musician, and he has something called Ataxia. Is that correct? Is that how you say it?
That is correct.
And so, as Ian shares with us this afternoon, this morning, you might find yourself thinking he talks a little different. And I know, because I listened to the clip that you had done with Melissa, what do they call this, ataxia?
The loving term for it is the drunk disease.
The loving term for it, which I'm sure is not exactly something that you find that is most glorifying of this disease, is it?
No, it makes it very hard because people don't, if everyone knew it, it would be okay.
Right, right.
But, you know, it's so unknown that you can have it and they don't know. I carry a card in my wallet.
Okay.
If I get stopped by the police.
Sure.
That I have to give them. It says I have this. Otherwise, they'll think I'm driving drunk.
Okay, all right. And I wanted to put that out there. I do want to talk to you about so many other things, but I wanted to put that out there so that when folks are listening, they're able to wrap their mind around that you are dealing with and have learned to deal with this ataxia. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So where are you from?
I'm from Manhattan.
From Manhattan. And then you've been to San Diego and
I lived in San Diego. I lived in Ithaca last winter. I was in Rochester.
Okay.
So when winter hits, I seem to move up north, which makes absolutely no sense.
I don't know, Ian. You look like you're a smart guy, but...
yeah, who'd have thunk, right?
And how did you get to Barneville, New York by way of Manhattan?
It's a long, long story.
Okay.
And actually, our videographer here today is Aaron Uri from Image House, right down on Route 12
That's
here.
right, that's right.
And he actually knows my mom, or his dad does, actually.
Okay.
Where our family lives nearby, and we were given a house years ago.
Okay.
By a painter. Thomas X.
Okay.
And his claim to fame, he was the first man to paint Abraham Lincoln's portrait.
Really?
And his cousin, Edward Hicks, was the artist who painted the Peaceable Kingdom.
Oh my goodness.
When he passed away, his wife said, you know, this kind of too much house for me. And they were great friends with my great-grandfather.
Okay.
And said, here, you take it. And she gave him the house.
Oh my gosh.
So then my grandfather and his brother, my great-uncle, were born. And they had families of their own. Eventually they said, you know what, this really is too small for both of our families.
Okay.
So my great-uncle left.
Okay.
And built a house right next to ours, which you don't want family that close, but whatever. So we've been coming up here every summer, and our house is now winterized.
Okay, all right.
And if we were to winterize it, because it's so old, it would be,
Oh, I can't even
you know,
imagine. Sure.
and we're certainly, not the elite by any standards.
Okay.
We have the house to a gift, so it's not like we have money.
Right.
But we've been coming up here every year. I've been coming up every summer.
Okay.
And I'm doing things now like rebuilding stone walls.
Oh my goodness.
I love to be active in the summer, and then the problem is we close this up in the fall.
Okay.
And it's getting harder and harder to go back to Manhattan.
Oh.
And so this year I decided, all right, well, just for fun, let me see what it's like up here. And I was up in Rochester last winter, and I lived in Ithaca, so I know what I'm in for in terms of weather.
Right, right.
Which I didn't think was this, but...
Right, yeah. And don't be deceived, this is not a typical winter, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Oh, it's not?
Again, you make me laugh.
Back to Manhattan.
So your folks or your friends or the folks that you know down in Manhattan, did they get hit by the blizzard a couple weeks ago?
They didn't actually. What's ironic about it, they were all sending me messages saying, do you have enough food? Are you going to be okay?
Yeah, right?
And then a couple days later, I'm calling them, are you okay? Yeah, it totally missed us.
Oh, I know, and it's so funny because I have some friends down in Virginia who were hit much harder than we've even been hit all winter long.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Oh, the ironic parts of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, oh, it's so beautiful, it's the snow, and yeah, it's nice in Manhattan for a day or two.
Right.
Then it all turns to slush and mixes with the garbage.
Yeah.
It's just nasty.
Oh, right, because we know what to do with it. We have places to put it, whereas I'm sure they've had to push it in these tiny little places to just get it out of the way so they could drive down their roads, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm here with Ian Bouras, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today. He's got an event coming up on February 20th, and as he has already spoken about the Utica Brew, that's where it's going to be, right?
Yeah, it's Utica Brews, excuse me, on 809 Court Street.
Okay.
And I'll be performing, Kevin Alexander will be performing, Kevin Keating will be performing.
Okay.
And we're going to see if one more person jumps on the bill. There'll also be vendors there selling, base care products and things like.
Nice.
There should be an auction, and it's sort of an informal fundraiser.
Okay.
The money we make from that, I'm going to give to the Ataxia group, NAF, which is the National Ataxia Foundation.
Okay.
But they, of course, have guidelines.
Sure.
So we would have had to fill out an entire application.
Okay.
And, all proceeds go to them, which is a problem because I don't know what deals they have with the vendors.
Ah.
So it just gets, it's too much to...
Tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, Ian's here and he's going to share some of his music here on the program here today. The event on the 20th, what time does that start, Ian?
The vendors will be there from 4 to 7.
Okay.
And the music starts at 7.
Okay, and
and goes until 10 o'clock.
All right there on Court Street, you said.
Yeah, 809 Court Street. It's part of the shops at the finish line. It's across from the brewery.
Okay, sure.
Which was, the first time I ever played there, I knew the name was Utica Brews. I had never been there.
Right.
And it was across from the brewery.
Sure.
And I was like, oh boy, am I going to wind up in some bar.
Right.
They brew coffee.
Well, you know what? I so appreciate that one because when you told me that you were going to have this event, I thought, well, let me find out about the Utica Brews because I thought the same thing. And I said, oh, it's a coffee shop, right?
Yeah. They did recently get their liquor license.
Okay.
Also, there are other meanings to the name Utica Brews, such as Utica's moving and shaking. Things are brewing in Utica.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thought. Things
So,
are moving in Utica. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and all this nanotech, that's what they've got going on now. That's the big talk in the town.
How long has that been for? I've been hearing that for a while.
I know. Well, supposedly it's supposed to be up and running sometime soon. But anyways,
Yeah.
so I'm again here with Ian. Ian, how long have you been doing music?
I've actually been doing music my whole life, pretty much.
Yeah.
I started playing very early,
Okay.
and then I went to music school, a couple of music schools actually, and
Okay.
then started playing professionally as a session player. Most of it live work.
Okay.
So I got to play with some great bands.
Okay.
I always wound up with disco acts a
Oh.
lot of the time, which is I didn't grow up with that.
Okay.
But I think the music is a lot of fun. But I
Yeah.
played for a long time with music. They did Push Push in the Bush and
Okay.
Keep on Jumping.
Okay.
So that was fun to play with them. We played with the Temptations with them.
Okay.
The fun thing about playing with music, they're wonderful ladies to work with, and
Okay.
they're all great performers. We were doing a festival in Syracuse,
Uh-huh.
and I see we're playing to about 5,000 people, and I see this cop car going back and forth
Okay.
during our entire, confusing, right?
Yeah, kind of. Definitely.
That's basically how I felt.
Right.
And I find out afterwards the police were chasing gang members back and forth through the audience.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's quite an experience.
Yeah.
Right?
And here I thought it was like gangster rap was involved with gangsters. Apparently it's disco.
Apparently, you
Yeah.
never knew that gangster rap and disco were of the same maybe genre.
Yeah, the same ilk.
That's it, the same ilk. And so, do you remember playing like as a little kid, like guitar or piano, or just kind of singing a little bit, or do you remember specifically as a little kid how you fell in love with music?
My mom played a lot of music.
Okay.
And that's maybe how I picked it up. My
Okay.
parents can't figure out. 'Cause my dad is actually deaf in one of his ears. He can't hear too well.
Okay.
My mom, pardon me, mom, is tone deaf.
Okay.
And
All right.
both my parents are like, how'd you get it? And I don't know.
You don't know.
But she played a lot of music, and I always loved it. And the Beatles, of course, she played. And,
Okay.
but she played everything. She played a lot of Mardi Gras music, and Zydeco, and Professor
goodness.
Longhair,
Oh my goodness.
Philip Glass. So I got this broad
Wow, you do.
spectrum of just,
All sorts of different
Yeah.
types of music. Wow, that's fun.
yeah.
And so playing music, and I, like I said, watched the clip that Melissa did with you, and then all of a sudden you found that things you weren't picking up music like you had been picking it up.
Yeah, I was trying to record something, and it's ironic that music was a thing that allowed me to figure out that I can't play music the way I used to play. That's all confusing. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I was trying to record something, and I couldn't do it. And I said, I'll practice for 2 weeks, and then come back and do it.
Okay.
And after 2 weeks, I tried to play it again, and I couldn't play it the way I wanted. I was like, this is not good.
Yeah. Something's going
So
on
I
here.
went to see a doctor, and we have no idea,
Yeah. Okay.
because that's not the first thing the doctors conclude.
Right.
Ataxia is so far off the radar.
Yeah.
So they did blood work, and I saw him a few times, and there was absolutely nothing wrong. And he said the only thing I can even think of, and this is when I was living in San Diego, he said the only thing I can think of is ataxia.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, but I'm not 100% sure. So about a year later, I moved back to Manhattan.
Okay.
And I went to Cornell, part of NYU Hospital.
Sure.
And the neurologist checked me out and said, yeah, and he's like the top neurologist of
Okay.
whatever he does.
Sure.
And he said, you have ataxia.
Wow. And so then, what's the step by step? Where do we go from here? What do we do? What's the future look like?
No one knows.
No one knows.
That's the problem. And
Wow.
I'm incredibly fortunate in that my ataxia hasn't progressed to the point. I go to a support group in Manhattan,
Okay.
and there's some people there that, I have pretty late onset.
Okay.
I mean, of course, I'm a young guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hardly higher than what do they say? Knee high to a grasshopper. Kind of thing. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a young lady there who's about 20, and she uses a walker.
Oh, wow.
And she's practicing getting on and off the subway because she can't move quick enough before
Sure.
the doors close.
Sure.
There are people there whose parents have to take care of them 24/7.
Right.
There's a young lady who was an EMT, and they had to let her go because, of course, she shakes with the needles.
Right. Right.
And even with the walkers, people have gotten up to go to the restroom and fallen over, and
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you been diagnosed with it?
I would say at this point it's probably been about 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
When I look back, I see how I could have had it,
Okay.
There
were some
but very,
symptoms.
very small.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm here with Ian Bouras, and we're talking music, and we're talking ataxia. Ian, what would you want to help people know in the community with regards to your ataxia, or those who have ataxia?
I don't know if it would just be specific to ataxia, but I would want people to not assume things, and somebody might be having a bad day. There might be a reason they are doing something. There might be a reason they're not.
Right.
There might be a reason they do or don't behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And people, and I'm certainly guilty of this, always jump to conclusions.
Right.
Whenever I drive and people don't use their turn signal, it drives me nuts.
Yeah. Right.
And I was telling Aaron earlier, recently I was rear-ended in my car, and my blinkers went out.
Oh.
And I drove without turn signals for a few days, and I was like,
oh,
ooh, now I'm that guy who
That's
made me
driving.
angry. But
Yes.
it's not that I'm just a schmuck and I'm trying to...
make you mad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's something going on.
Right. Right.
And the same thing with ataxia.
Right.
With, I'm I guess fortunate in a way that, people see the way I am and they don't assume drunk right off the bat, because it's past that point when it was very early on and it was so little, the slurring, it was questionable.
Okay.
Now it's kind of like, well, we might not know what's wrong, but something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you see that most people give you the benefit of the doubt, or do you think they are likely to go, something's up with him?
I think most people do,
Okay.
and especially those who know me. And I don't drink. I haven't even touched anything for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase. I don't drink alcohol. I do drink, but
Right. Right.
yeah. So most people give me the benefit of the doubt.
That's good.
And also, if I were maybe smaller, I think a lot of it has to do with my appearance. They're not gonna give me a hard time because they look at me and they're like, that's not the kind of person who bothers.
Yeah, you don't bother with him. Yes, exactly. So, and are there days? Do you feel like you have good days and bad days with the? It's a disease, correct? Do you feel like there's good days and bad days?
Yeah, there are good days and bad days. Usually towards the evening,
Okay.
even if it's a good day, is harder.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of energy to articulate.
Uh huh. Sure.
Everything takes energy. Swallowing. We were discussing in my Ataxia support group recently. People even choke, and I certainly do because
Yeah.
ataxia, long and the short of it is, it's part of the nervous system that it affects. You know, the cells in the cerebellum are slowly perishing.
Okay.
And so certain muscles that need to coordinate movements, such as swallowing,
Yeah.
don't always happen.
Right. Right.
And so it's frightening sometimes, and
Sure.
it's scary. Like, oh well, if I do this, am I gonna choke and then cough for 15 minutes? Or
Right. Right.
yeah,
Right. And you know, Ian, it just reminds me of how much we take so much of these natural things like me swallowing. I don't even think about that,
yeah,
you know. And I appreciate as you come and share with us, it is important that we stop and think about these kind of things and be grateful that we can do these kind of things and give you folks that can't do these things as readily, give you guys the benefit of the doubt. Are there things you can do to slow down ataxia, or don't they know?
they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I won't even theorize on it.
Okay.
They don't know, and they're always trying new things. And at this support group, they're always, oh, you know, I've tried this vitamin or I've tried this balance vest. It's always something,
Okay. All right.
and everything. It's just like life. Everyone is different,
Right. Right.
and you know, there are people in their half my age, as I was saying, who are just, you know, have full blown.
Yeah.
And there's so many different kinds. They asked who in the support group knows what kind of ataxia they have. Only half the room raised their hand.
Wow.
And I asked my neurologist, I said, could I find out? And he said, yeah. You know, but the blood test would be about $7,000, and insurance isn't going to pay for it, and we can't do anything anyway.
Right.
So it would be purely academic. I would want to know as an educator, but we can't do anything with the information.
Right. It doesn't tell you you should take this medicine instead of this medicine.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. But I think one of the things I'm excited about is to hear your music, to see that you have not let this keep you from doing what you love to do. And I think that's so commendable.
Well, thank you. That's a big thing I want people to see and to learn from what I do, is that it really doesn't matter if you like something, do it. And if life puts up a roadblock, you find another way around it. And you know, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I have it because it did push me musically to create something that no one else is doing.
Wow.
And I've always been a huge Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna be those guys.
Right.
They're unique, and there was only one of them.
Right.
And now I get the opportunity to be the only one, even if I'm awful. I'm still the only person with ataxia to be doing this.
Oh, Ian, you have such a good attitude towards it. Did you have that from the get-go, or was there a season that you really struggled with that diagnosis?
I did for about the first year or two.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I went through an anger phase, obviously.
Sure.
And one of the benefits, actually, it came out well, from having ataxia. I was so angry when I first got diagnosed, I was picking fights with a lot of people.
Okay.
and I'd pick fights in Manhattan, and I picked a fight with these 5 kids. And, they're like half my age, so I'm like, this is a problem. Then I started getting excited and yelling at them, so I started to slur a little bit. And one of them was like, is something wrong with you?
And they thought you were...
And they left me alone.
Uh-huh.
So it actually worked out that, the reason I was picking the fight, I was angry over Ataxia.
Yeah.
And then when I realized I'm in trouble here,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything to these kids, and Ataxia got me out of it. So.
Do you feel like there was something that made that switch in your head to say, I'm glad I have this because I can do something that is completely unique? Or has it just evolved to that?
It has evolved to that.
Yeah, yeah.
For a while I was very mad about it.
Yeah.
And then I realized, there's nothing I can do about it, so...
Make the most of it.
Yeah, I might as well just do something at least positive. And I've always wanted to try and educate others or make a difference. And it's like, maybe it wasn't the way I wanted to do it, but I now have an opportunity to do it.
Yeah, you have a format, right?
Yeah.
And this is a Christian radio station, as you know, and I think one of the things we oftentimes do is say to God, why God? Or did you get mad at God? Or do you feel like that was never really a piece for you?
It really wasn't a piece for me.
Okay.
It just, there's no point in asking why.
Oh, I love that you say that, because there's a lot of people who do ask that question, why God?
Because the answer, so what? If you
Not.
get the answer you don't like, what are you going to do anyway? It's still going to happen, so who cares?
Oh, gosh, yeah, that's very true.
And and this is a political thing, but the 9/11 truthers who want, Bush and Cheney to admit they had a hand in 9/11.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, what are you going to do even if they say, yeah, we did it?
Right.
It's not like they're going to jail.
Right.
And you're not going to prevent anybody else from doing something bad, so it really doesn't matter why.
Right, right.
So asking why, to me, seems sometimes like a poor use of my time.
Okay.
And I don't know how long my time is, on this earth, and, for all I know the way Ataxia goes, I doubt this will be the case. When I originally spoke to a neurologist, he told my mom Ian might need a cane in 10 years. He might not. So for all I know, I could wake up tomorrow morning and not be able to function.
Yeah.
So forget why. I really don't care. I better just do what I can today and then be grateful.
Wow.
Tomorrow, if I'm lucky enough to wake up being able to,
Wow.
function properly.
Lots of wisdom right there. So, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, ataxia sounds something like multiple sclerosis. Is it the same idea?
The weird thing is, and you're right, a lot of things were misdiagnosed in the past.
Okay.
And actually, it's not MS, but Parkinson's.
Oh, okay.
Was, if you look back at all the people who had it, there's a really good chance they had ataxia.
Okay.
But nobody knew about it.
Okay.
So, of course, they weren't diagnosed with that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
wow.
so you're right. It is very like other things.
When do they feel, do you know when it was something they've discovered, when they realized it was ataxia that was out there? Do you know?
I don't know the exact
Okay,
years.
just was wondering if, because Parkinson's been around for a whole long time, and I didn't know if they went, wait a minute, this is not the same as Parkinson. Yeah. And so here, Ian Bouras is here with us, and we're going to have him do some of his music. Let's just real quick recap and tell them the event that you've got going on February 20th.
Yes, February 20th I'll be performing at Utica Brews on 809 Court Street with Kevin Keating and Kevin Alexander. We'll have vendors from 4 to 7, and then we'll have music from 7 to 10, and it's to help raise money for Ataxia.
And awareness as well.
Yeah.
Right? All right, I'm excited because Ian also is going to he's going to bring us some of his CDs so we can have some of his music in our system as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and put this on hold, and we're going to have Ian play some music for us.
Sounds great.
Ian, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you.